Hey, shalom, shalom,
Shalom.
shalom lakam, which is peace unto you all. Anachna waha bar shalai with the Hebrew Israelites, coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, to preach to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners. Nachamatam, Kaya, Hamalak, Hashamayim, Kwa repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand, first and foremost. Before we get started, we want to give our praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruchak, Wadashwa, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us his truth and rule well. And much respect to you, bros, out there pushing the truth with all righteousness and sincere shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
All right, so another edition of AhlapBayath, which is the alphabet. Ha is the, Ahlap is it goes into an ox or the number one. All right, and you have Bayath, which is it's a compound word, and that's ultimately where alphabet comes from. Alphabet is actually a Greek term, but it derives from the Hebrew term AhlapBayath, which are the two for the first two letters in the alphabet. And as we go into, ultimately, the whole alphabet is a representation or it's a image. It's a reflection of the Lord Yahweh Shai. So each character has a characteristic of the Lord Yahweh Shai. So today we're going into Na. This is a beautiful edification through the Spirit. So I'm gonna read off what the letter Na goes into. All right, and it says Na. All right, and it looks actually like the letter N. All right, so it says non. That's the word that corresponds with it. All right, it says non, which represents a seed. All right, I'm gonna get that word for seed as well. So Na is comprised of two letters, Na and Na. All right, that last A drops off, so it'll be non. So it says the seed is the continuation of life from the parent plant. The cycle continues generation after generation, in which I'm a copy and paste this into the description box, if brothers want to go back and look at it. But it says the seed is a continuation of life from the parent plant. The cycle continues generation after generation. And when you look at an actual seed, when you take like, for example, a fruit seed, like that specific seed is going to continue generation after generation. It's always going to be, an apple plant. All right. So it says the pictograph Na is a picture of a seed. Combine these mean seed of a seed. All right. So going back to the chart, it says seed. All right, because again, these words also correspond with the letter Na. So you got the seed, a throne, a sprout, continuance because your seed is your continuance. You got offspring because the seed is also your offspring, and then you also have an heir. All right, and then you have life. All right, and we're gonna get a couple precepts going into that. Can we start with Psalms 89 and verse 29, Baba Kushar?
God. It's the book of Psalm, chapter 89, and verse 29. His seed also will I make to endure forever, and his throne as the days of heaven.
It says his seed also, because this is going into King David. All right, and it's talking about the Lord Yahweh Shai. It says his seed also will I make to endure forever, and his throne is the days of heaven. Because the Lord Yahweh Shai's kingdom is going to be forever. Which we got, and going into the peace. All right, the similitude of peace and King Solomon's rulership. We seen what peace was like. You see, but the peace that is going to be upon this planet Earth is going to be forever in the kingdom of heaven under the Lord Yahweh Shai. Can we also get Psalms 72? Actually, can we get 2 Samuel 7 and 12?
God. It's the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 7, verse 12. And when thy days be fulfilled.
Yeah, we get that one.
God. 2 Samuel 7 and 12. And when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom.
Right. So when we read down, all right, it says the subtitle, all right, in the BLB blue letter, it says David plans to build a temple. All right. And so, this was being directed towards King David, you see, but it wasn't going to be King David that ultimately built up the temple. All right, it was going to be King Solomon, who was the Lord Yahweh Shai in the regeneration. So can we run that back, Baba Kushah?
Okay. 2 Samuel 7 and 12. And when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee.
It said, I will set up thy seed after thee. All right. And ultimately, as pursuant to Matthew 22, we understand that in the regeneration, and one of the Lord Yahweh Shai's generations, he was King Solomon. All right, because the seed that was after King David is talking about King Solomon.
God, continuing on. Which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom.
It says, which shall proceed out of thy bowels. All right, and it's talking about, pretty much when something proceeds out of your bowels, our bowels is our reproductive organs. So when we look at this word for nah, all right, again, you got seed, you got a throne, and you got continuance. When you go into your seed, that shows your continuance. Because that's a reflection and that's a representation of who you are. If you had a son or something like that, that's your representation. Your son is pretty much your spitting image. But it says another word, or the word I was going into was continuance, and also offspring. Your offspring proceeds from your bowels. You keep on though.
Okay. 2 Samuel 7:13. He shall build an house for my name.
Right, and when we go into different scriptures, it goes into how the temple was built. That was the house in verse 13 that was going to be built, and that was built by King Solomon.
Mhm. Okay. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever.
Right. So again, going into the words that corresponded with na or nan. All right, you got seed, you got a throne. You see, because the Lord Yahweh Shai is going to sit upon a throne. All right, you got continuance, you got offspring, you got heir, and then you also have life. So it says, he shall build a house for my name, talking about the temple. It says, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. That, and that also shows continuance. We're going to go down to verse 16.
Okay. 2 Samuel 7:14. And I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men, and when the stripes of children, and with the stripes of children of men.
Right, and that never happened to King Solomon. All right, so in one of his generations, the Lord Yahweh Shai was King Solomon. You see that happen in his lifetime as Yahweh Shai. When he went on the cross.
Yep. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee.
Hmm.
And thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever.
Right, and that's gonna be done. All right, when the Lord Yahweh Shai is on the throne. Just to prove that, could we get Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6?
And I got one after this.
Okay.
It's Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. For unto us is a child born, unto us is a son given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Power, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
So it says, "For unto us a child is born." So in order for a child to be born, he would have to come from a specific lineage. From a seed. As we got in Second Samuel, the seventh chapter.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, this is Daniel 7:13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Right. So going to that continuance, like you may mention, right? He's like unto his father, right? And we're like unto him.
Hmm.
So we're continuing in that legacy, right? Just as Solomon was continuing in David's legacy, and Yahweh Shai being that same spirit, coming to continuing further.
Right.
Verse 14, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Right. So that throne, right, as in Genesis it talks about that scepter shall not pass out of Judah. Right. That throne is a continuing on forever, man. Right. So that rulership from David on down, right, is continuing through, that family line.
Right. And that's why I said heir.
Mm-hmm.
We keep on at verse 7.
Okay,
Isaiah 9 and 7.
gotcha. Isaiah 97. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with the justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this.
Hmm. So it says, of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. It's going to be forever, continuance. It says, upon the throne of David, or as we've been going into, it says, upon his kingdom to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. Because right now, when we look upon the planet Earth, all right, things are being ran in unrighteousness. All right, things are being ran in wickedness, and it's off balance. So true equity, true balance, true justice is going to be served when the Lord Yahweh Shai is sitting upon His throne. And ultimately that's how a kingdom is able to thrive. That's pursuant to Bon Sirach, the 10th chapter. It has to be ran in wisdom for it to thrive.
Uh,
But from that, could we get we'll get Romans chapter 8 and verse 17.
it's the book of Romans, chapter 8, and verse 17. And if children, then heirs. Well, I'll start at 16.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High.
Right. So it says the spirit itself, excuse me, the spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. And what is the spirit? It's talking about the scriptures. Are the scriptures are a living testament as to the things that happen to us as a people. So if one wanted to know, it was a different documentaries and different questions. Years ago they'll say, oh, well, where are the lost tribes of Israel? If you want to know who will fit the description today, you would just go into the scriptures. All right, and upon reading the scriptures, all right, and truthfully how they're supposed to be read, one will understand that, all right, the children of Israel are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners.
Mm-hmm. And if children, verse 17, and if children, then heirs, heirs of the Most High, and joint heirs with Hamashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together.
Right. So again, the alphabet is likened unto the Lord Yahweh Shai, because each letter is a characteristic of the Lord Yahweh Shai, So he has went through his time of testing, all right, and every scripture about him that goes into a prophecy, he's going to fulfill it. So he's went through his rite of passage, so to speak. So being that the elect is going to be joint heirs, the time of testing is going to be the straight gate. So the elect is going to be joint heirs with the Lord Yahweh Shai. So um again, that shows true continuance. Because we're following the trailblazer of the Lord Yahweh Shai, and then also that shows how we're able to receive of eternal life, being that we're following the trailblazer.
That's it. The author and finisher of our faith, man.
Hmm.
So he going back to him being the Word, right? He established it, right, and he solidified it. We just, like you said, we just follow in those footsteps.
Right. Could we get John chapter 14 and verse 6?
It's the book of John, chapter 14 and verse 6. Yahweh Shai saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me.
I'm gonna get this word for life real fast. It says life, the state of one who is the state of one who is possessed of vitality or is animate. It says every living soul. It says life and real, genuine, a life active, vigorous, devoted to the Most High, blessed in the portion, even in this world, of those who put their trust in Hamashayach. It says, but after the resurrection, to be consummated by a new accessions, among them a more perfect body, and to last forever. Continuance. All right, the throne, joint heirs. It goes into all that. But I want to touch on this point as well. It says the state of one who is possessed of vitality or is animate, because when we look at could we get a quick preset real fast? Could you get Isaiah the 44th chapter?
Yeah.
We start from the top.
Okay. Isaiah 44 and 1. Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus saith the Lord that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen.
Mm-hmm.
For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thine offspring.
Right. Ultimately going into, the true wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures.
God,
You keep going.
God. And they shall spring up as among the grass, as willows by the watercourses.
Right. And this is talking about, the different camps. Ultimately, this word has went out. All right, and the camps are essentially appearing in the spirit.
One shall say, I am the Lord's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob.
Right.
And,
Yeah, you can finish. My bad.
and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name of Israel.
Right. And essentially, that's listing, all right, what we're doing in the spirit, you see, because when you go back to Isaiah, or when you go forward to Isaiah 62 and verse 2, it went into a new name, and that word for new went into chadash, all right, to be repaired, to be restored, to be refreshed. All right, reason I want to get this because again, na goes into life, all right. And I read right here, it says the state of one who is possessed of vitality or is animate, every living soul. All right, and then it says of absolute fullness of life, both essential and ethical, which belongs to the Most High through him both to hypostatic logos and to Hamashayach, in whom the logos put on human nature. So pretty much, all right, when we was in the world, ultimately, Jake was subscribing to being so-called Hispanic, all right, Native American, Black, Latino, so on and so forth. All of these are exonyms, you see, but the scriptures say that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So ultimately, this word has been preached to us, all right. And again, as you mentioned, bro, the Lord Yahweh Shai comes in the volume of the book, so the Lord Yahweh Shai was preached unto us, all right. We believed in the Lord Yahweh Shai. So, in continuance, Lord's willing, we receive of eternal life first go around.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the Lord Yahweh Shai is life, all right. Because when we subscribe to those exonyms, we ain't have no life in us. That those was death styles that was given to our enemies. That's why the scriptures say, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. All right, and ultimately, in being free, it's synonymous with being alive.
Okay.
So from that, could we get First Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 7, or excuse, yeah, verse 6.
Okay. It's the book of First Corinthians, chapter 3, and verse 6. I have planted, Apollos watered, but the Most High gave the increase.
Right. So it says, I have planted, Apollo's watered, but the Most High gave the increase. You go to verse 7.
Okay. So then neither is he that planteth anything, neither he that watereth, but the Most High that giveth the increase.
Right. It's the Lord that gives the increase. So ultimately, a seed can be planted. This word can ultimately go out. All right. But it's ultimately upon the Lord if, one is going to grow spiritually, because when we go into that word for increase, we get this word for increase. All right. And it says G837. It says to cause to grow, augment, to increase, become greater, to grow, increase of plants, of infants, of a multitude of people, of inward Christian growth. And we understand that the true Christians are the Israelites. All right. And it's spiritual that the Lord ultimately put when we go to the alphabet, each how they've been configured and codified. Each letter is in the specific place that it's in, all right, in the alphabet for a specific reason. And when we look at Na, it's a seed, all right. But what comes before the seed, all right, it's water, mayam, all right. Because in order for it to grow, you have to water the seed, all right. And ultimately, if that seed is going to grow, it's dependent upon the Lord Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. All right, I want to get this definition real fast, and that's all I had. If you ain't had nothing, bro.
Okay.
This is the word for germinate. All right, and it says germinate. It says of a seed or spore begin to grow and put out shoots, which ultimately goes into a sprout. That's why it also goes into a sprout. It says out shoots after a period of dormancy. All right, it says to develop, to bud. It says to vegetate. All right, it says develop to take root. So it's ultimately upon the Lord Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. If one is rooted and one is going to ultimately bring forth, those fruits of righteousness.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
But yeah, Yeah, that's pretty much it, bro. You had anything else?
Okay. I mean, I was just gonna add to that point.
Hmm.
With the scriptures talk about Galatians 3:16. Those that one seed, man, right, of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right. So there's a lot of seeds being Israel, but the only seeds that are going to sprout, are going to be the elect in that time, man. Right?
Hmm.
The 144,000 being those first fruit spirits, and then the rest of the great multitude, right? So those seeds being planted, right? The Lord is watering as we speak, man. You know.
Right. As a matter of fact, yeah, yeah. Let me get that. This is Deuteronomy chapter 32, and Deuteronomy chapter 32, and we can get verse 2, verse 1. It says, "Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth." All right, and the words of the Lord is ultimately coming out of these scriptures. It says, "My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as showers upon the grass." All right, and ultimately, again, this word has went out across the four corners of the globe, and those that ultimately are going to be those seeds that germinate is going to be the elect.
No, that's it.
Conway, I don't want to Zaza about night. Palos with us a beautiful edification to the spirit. Well, we can go ahead and close it out by saying, Call Halai Mla, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rocha Kodash, who I double honors to, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us the truth and rule well, and much respect to you, bros, out there pushing this truth with all righteousness and sincere shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.